The hotel key card slipped into the door with a soft beep, and Sarah Vance pushed it open without a second thought, her mind already on the hot shower waiting for her after 12 grueling hours of flying from Boston to San Francisco for her sister's wedding. The suite that opened before her made her freeze mid-step, her carry-on dropping from suddenly numb fingers. This was not the modest single room she had booked. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering bay, the Golden Gate Bridge suspended like a string of diamonds against the night sky. Cream leather furniture sat arranged around a marble fireplace, and through an open doorway, she could see what looked like a bedroom bigger than her entire apartment back home. Her exhausted brain tried to process what was happening when a door on the far side of the suite opened, and a man walked out, toweling his dark hair, wearing nothing but expensive-looking black sweatpants that hung low on narrow hips. He stopped when he saw her, and for a moment, they simply stared at each other. Sarah's first coherent thought was that he was absurdly handsome in a way that seemed almost unfair. Dark hair, strong jaw with a shadow of stubble, and gray eyes that assessed her with an intensity that made her skin flush. His bare chest showed the kind of muscle definition that came from actual physical work or dedication, not vanity. Her second thought was that she needed to get out of here immediately. "I am so sorry," she stammered, grabbing for her bag. "The key card, it must have been wrong. I didn't mean to just walk in here like some kind of crazy person." "Wait." His voice was deep, authoritative in a way that made her pause despite herself. "You have a key card that opened this door." She held up the little paper sleeve the front desk had given her, her hand shaking slightly. "Room 2847. That's what they gave me downstairs." He crossed the room toward her with easy confidence, and she noticed he was tall, easily 6'2" or 6'3". When he was close enough to read the writing on the sleeve, his expression shifted to something between amusement and frustration. "This says 2847. This is 2947. He looked at her more carefully now, and his expression softened. "You look exhausted." 12 hours of travel," she admitted, then mentally kicked herself for sharing personal information with a stranger whose suite she had just broken into. "I should go down to the front desk and get this sorted out. At 11 at night, when there is probably a line of irritated travelers waiting to check in." He studied her for a moment longer, then seemed to come to some internal decision. "Stay." Sarah's eyes widened. "I cannot just stay in your hotel suite." "Why not? It has 2 bedrooms. I was only going to use one of them." He gestured toward the second doorway she had not noticed before. "You can crash here tonight, get some actual rest, and deal with the front desk in the morning when you are coherent enough to yell at them properly. I don't even know you." But even as she said it, the thought of dragging herself and her luggage back down to the lobby, waiting in line, possibly finding out they were overbooked, and she would need to find another hotel entirely, made her want to cry. "Xander Novik," he said, extending his hand. "I work in renewable energy infrastructure. I am in town for a series of meetings about a new solar farm project. I am from Seattle originally, but I travel constantly. I have no criminal record, no weird habits, and I promise I am not a serial killer." Despite everything, she found herself almost smiling as she shook his hand. His grip was warm and firm. "Sarah Vance. I'm a speech therapist from Boston. I am here for my sister's wedding this weekend. I also promise I am not a serial killer. Then we should get along fine." He picked up her dropped carry-on and set it by the second bedroom door. "There are fresh towels in that bathroom, and I think the mini bar is stocked if you are hungry. I was about to order room service myself if you want anything." Sarah knew she should refuse. Every reasonable instinct told her to go downstairs and sort this out properly. But her feet hurt, Her back ached, and this strange, handsome man was offering her a comfortable place to sleep when she could barely keep her eyes open. Against all logic and common sense, she found herself nodding. "Just for tonight," she said firmly. "And I am paying for half the room service." Something that might have been respect flickered in his gray eyes. "Deal." 20 minutes later, Sarah emerged from the best shower of her life wearing clean pajamas and feeling almost human again. She found Xander sitting on one of the cream leather sofas, now wearing a t-shirt along with his sweatpants, his laptop open on the coffee table in front of him. He looked up when she entered. "I ordered a variety of things since I did not know what you would want. Should be here in about 10 minutes. He closed his laptop. "Feel better, immensely." She sat down on the opposite end of the sofa, keeping a respectful distance. "Thank you for this. Really, I know it is probably against your better judgment." "My assistant would have a heart attack if she knew," he admitted with a slight smile. "She is very concerned about security protocols and stranger danger." "Your assistant sounds sensible." "She is terrifyingly sensible. It is why I pay her an obscene amount of money." He leaned back against the sofa cushions. "So speech therapist. What made you choose that?" Sarah tucked her legs under her, grateful for the distraction of conversation. "My little brother had a severe stutter when we were kids. I watched his speech therapist help him find his voice, literally. He is a radio host now in Chicago. I wanted to do that for other people." "That is a good reason." There was something genuine in his voice that made her look at him more carefully. "Better than it seemed like a stable career or my parents wanted me to." "What made you choose renewable energy?" His expression shifted, became more distant. "I grew up in a fishing town that died when the local ecosystem collapsed from industrial pollution. Watched my father and his friends lose their livelihoods. Watched the community I loved turn into a ghost town. I wanted to build power systems that would not destroy the places they served." The raw honesty in his words surprised her. This did not sound like corporate talking points or cocktail party small talk. "Did you succeed?" "Starting to." He met her eyes. "It has taken 15 years and more money than I want to think about, but we are getting there. The solar farm we are negotiating this week could power 100,000 homes without a single emission." Before Sarah could respond, someone knocked on the door. Xander got up to let the room service attendant in, and suddenly the coffee table was covered with covered dishes. Pasta, salads, sandwiches, fruit, desserts. It was enough food for 6 people. "I did not know what you would like," Xander said with a slight shrug that might have been embarrassment. They ate sitting on the floor on opposite sides of the coffee table, which felt somehow less intimate than sharing the sofa. Sarah discovered she was starving and worked her way through pasta and salad while Xander demolished 2 sandwiches. They talked easily, conversation flowing from her sister's upcoming wedding to his solar farm project to their favorite cities they had traveled to. "Prague," Sarah said definitively. "I went there for a conference 3 years ago and fell completely in love. The architecture, the history, the fact that you can get amazing beer for like $2. The beer is a compelling argument," Xander agreed. "For me it is probably Reykjavik. I spent 6 months there consulting on a geothermal project. Something about the landscape, all that ice and volcanic rock, felt like being on another planet." 6 months. "Do you always travel that much for work?" "Usually more." Something flickered across his face, there and gone too quickly to read. "I have an apartment in Seattle that I probably spend 30 days a year in. The rest of the time I am wherever the projects are." "That sounds lonely," Sarah said before she could stop herself. Xander was quiet for a moment, his gray eyes fixed on her with that same intense focus from earlier. "It is," he said finally. but it is what the work requires. The honesty of that admission hung in the air between them. Sarah felt something shift, some invisible line being crossed. They were not just two strangers making awkward small talk anymore. "My ex-boyfriend hated that I worked with kids," she found herself saying. "He thought it was beneath me, that I should do something more ambitious. Wanted me to go back to school for business, make more money, be more successful in ways he could quantify." "Your ex-boyfriend sounds like an idiot." The blunt declaration startled a laugh out of her. "He was, actually. It took me 2 years to figure that out. We all have our blind spots." Xander started clearing the dishes back onto the room service cart. "My last relationship ended because she wanted someone who would be home for dinner, and I kept missing flights because projects ran long. She was not wrong to want that. I just could not be that person." "When was that?" 3 years ago. He wheeled the cart into the hallway. "Have not really dated since. Too complicated." Sarah glanced at her phone and was shocked to see it was nearly 1 in the morning. "I should let you get some sleep. I am sure you have early meetings." 8 o'clock breakfast meeting, he confirmed, but he did not sound eager to end the conversation either. "You should sleep too. Weddings require energy." They said good night and retreated to their separate bedrooms, and Sarah lay in the impossibly comfortable bed staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. She had just spent 2 hours talking to a complete stranger and felt more comfortable, more seen than she had in her entire relationship with Derek. It was probably just exhaustion making her feel this strange connection. In the morning, she would thank Xander for his hospitality, go get her proper room, and never see him again. The thought made her inexplicably sad. Sarah woke to sunlight streaming through gauzy curtains and the smell of coffee. For a moment she was completely disoriented, until the events of the previous night came flooding back. She grabbed her phone and saw it was nearly 9 in the morning. She had slept for almost 8 hours straight. When she emerged from the bedroom, she found Xander sitting at a small dining table near the windows, his laptop open, wearing a crisp white dress shirt and dark slacks. He looked up when she entered. "There is coffee," he said, gesturing to a carafe on the table. "And I had them send up breakfast." "I was not sure when you would wake up." "Your meeting," Sarah said, confused. "I thought you had an 8 o'clock breakfast meeting." "I moved it to 10. Conference call instead." He said it casually, like it was no big deal, but Sarah got the distinct impression that Xander Novak did not usually rearrange his schedule for anyone. She poured herself coffee and sat down across from him, accepting a plate of eggs and toast. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Xander spoke again. "I have another meeting after this one, but I should be free by early afternoon. If you wanted, I could show you some of the better spots in the city, unless you have wedding things." "The wedding is not until Saturday." Today was supposed to be my recovery day. Sarah knew she should say no, should go get her proper room, maybe see some tourist attractions on her own, definitely not spend more time with this man who was making her feel things she had no business feeling after one evening. "I would like that." His smile was worth the risk. 4 hours later, Sarah found herself walking through the Ferry Building marketplace, sampling cheese and chocolate while Xander pointed out his favorite vendors. He had changed into jeans and a dark Henley that made him look less like a corporate executive and more like someone who should be on a magazine cover. People looked at him as they passed, women especially, but he seemed completely oblivious to the attention. "You have to try this," he said, handing her a sample of some kind of aged cheddar. "It is made by a family farm in Sonoma." Sarah took a bite and practically groaned. "That is incredible." The father started the farm 30 years ago with 3 cows. Now they supply half the restaurants in San Francisco. Xander bought a large wedge and added it to the growing collection of items he had been purchasing. Persistence pays off. Is that your business philosophy? That is my life philosophy. He steered her toward the exit. Come on, I want to show you something. They walked along the Embarcadero, the bay sparkling in the afternoon sun, sailboats cutting white paths across the blue water. Xander pointed out landmarks and told her stories about the city, and Sarah realized he had that rare quality of being able to make a place come alive through narrative. She could listen to him talk for hours. You should have been a tour guide, she said. I considered it. But the pay is terrible compared to renewable energy infrastructure. He said it deadpan, and it took her a moment to realize he was joking. How terrible of you, choosing to save the planet for money instead of giving tours for passion. I am deeply mercenary, he agreed solemnly, but his eyes were warm with amusement. They ended up at a small seafood restaurant overlooking the water, sitting outside despite the slight chill in the air. Xander ordered them crab rolls and local beer, and they watched the seagulls fight over scraps while the sun began its slow descent toward the horizon. Can I ask you something? Sarah said, gathering her courage. Last night you said you work in renewable energy infrastructure, but you did not say what you actually do. Are you an engineer, a consultant, what? Xander was quiet for a moment, his expression becoming more guarded. I own the company, Novik Energy Solutions. We design and build renewable energy systems, primarily solar and wind farms, but we are expanding into geothermal and tidal energy as well. Sarah's brain stuttered. She had heard of Novik Energy Solutions. Everyone had heard of Novik Energy Solutions. They were one of the biggest renewable energy companies in the country, maybe the world, which meant Xander was not just successful, he was billionaire successful. Oh, she said faintly. That is why I did not tell you last night. His voice was careful, controlled. People act differently when they know. Differently how? They want things. Investments, donations, jobs for their cousin's boyfriend, or they get weird and deferential, like I am suddenly a different person than I was 5 minutes before. He met her eyes. You treated me like a regular person last night. It was refreshing. Sarah took a long drink of her beer while she processed this information. Xander Novik. Of course. She had seen his picture in business magazines, though he looked different in person, more human somehow. I do not want anything from you, she said finally, except maybe for you to pay for lunch since apparently you can afford it. The tension in his shoulders eased and he laughed, genuine and surprised. Deal. They spent the rest of the afternoon walking through North Beach and Chinatown, and Sarah made a conscious decision not to treat him any differently than she had before. He was still the man who had let her sleep in his hotel suite, who ordered too much room service, who had rearranged his morning meeting so they could have breakfast together. The money did not change that, but it did make her acutely aware of the gap between their worlds. She was a speech therapist from Boston who lived in a modest apartment and budgeted carefully for things like this trip. He was a billionaire who probably had not looked at a price tag in years. Whatever this connection was between them, it existed in a temporary bubble that would pop as soon as she got on a plane back to Boston. You got quiet, Xander said as they climbed the steep streets of Telegraph Hill. Just thinking. About, she glanced at him. His hair was slightly wind-blown, his expression open in a way she suspected it rarely was. About how this is the best day I've had in a really long time, and how I leave on Monday. Something shifted in his face. Yeah, he said quietly. I thought about that too. They reached Coit Tower as the sun was setting, the city spread out below them in a carpet of lights. Xander stood close enough that she could feel the warmth of him, and when his hand brushed against hers, she did not pull away. His fingers laced through hers, and they stood like that, watching darkness fall over San Francisco, neither of them saying what they were both thinking. That this felt like something that could matter if they let it, that they were running out of time. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from her sister Emma asking where she was and if she wanted to meet for dinner. Reality intruded on their perfect bubble. "I should go," Sarah said reluctantly. "Sister duties call. Tomorrow." Xander's voice was rough, almost uncertain, and she realized he felt as off balance as she did. "I have bridesmaid stuff most of the day, but maybe tomorrow night. I would like that." He squeezed her hand once before letting go. "I will drive you back to the hotel." Except when they got back to the hotel, Sarah discovered that her room situation still had not been resolved. The apologetic front desk clerk explained that due to a system error, they were completely overbooked and would not have a room available until Saturday at the earliest. They could arrange accommodations at a partner hotel across town if she liked. Or, Xander said quietly beside her, you could stay another night. Same arrangement as before. The clerk's eyes widened slightly, clearly recognizing Xander and making assumptions about their relationship. Sarah knew she should take the other hotel room, establish some boundaries, protect herself from whatever this thing was that kept growing between them. But the thought of being across the city from him felt wrong in a way she could not articulate. "Same arrangement," she confirmed. Back in the suite, they ordered room service again and ate sitting on the balcony, the city lights spread out before them. Sarah told him about her sister's frantic texts about centerpiece disasters and bridesmaid dress emergencies. And Xander told her about his 10 o'clock meeting that had turned into a battle over environmental impact assessments. "The county board wants us to do an additional 6-month study on potential disruption to a bird population," he said, frustrated. "Which I would support if the birds in question were not pigeons that literally live everywhere." "Pigeons need advocates too," Sarah said with mock seriousness. "You are taking the pigeon's side. I am a speech therapist. I advocate for everyone's voice, even pigeons." He laughed and shook his head. "You are going to be trouble, aren't you?" "Almost certainly." The word hung in the air between them, full of unspoken possibility. You, not her. Like he was already thinking about a future that extended past Monday. Later, after they had said good night and retreated to separate bedrooms again, Sarah lay awake staring at the ceiling. She was falling for him. Had already fallen, probably, somewhere between his quiet honesty last night and his laugh this afternoon. It was fast and reckless and completely illogical, but she could not deny what she felt. The question was what she was going to do about it. The next day passed in a blur of wedding chaos. Sarah spent the morning at a bridesmaid brunch, the afternoon at a dress fitting, and the early evening at the rehearsal dinner. Emma looked radiant and happy, marrying her college sweetheart Marcus in what was shaping up to be a beautiful ceremony. Sarah smiled and laughed and played her role, but part of her mind was elsewhere, counting down the hours until she could see Xander again. He had texted her a few times throughout the day. Nothing serious, just small observations and jokes that made her smile. "Another pigeon just flew past my meeting room window. I think they are mocking me. The county board just used the word synergy 12 times in 10 minutes. Send help. I know you are busy, but I miss you and that feels too fast and also completely true." That last text had arrived during the rehearsal dinner, and Sarah had stared at it for 5 full minutes, her heart doing complicated things in her chest. She excused herself to the bathroom and called him. "Hi," she said when he answered. "Hi." She could hear the smile in his voice. "How's the wedding madness? Manageable?" "Xander, that text. Too much. I can take it back." "Don't you dare take it back." She pressed her free hand against the cool bathroom wall, needing to ground herself. I miss you too, and it is too fast, and I don't care. When can I see you? I should be back at the hotel by 10. I will be waiting. Sarah returned to the dinner table feeling like she was glowing and caught Emma watching her with knowing eyes. Later, when the dinner was breaking up, Emma pulled her aside. "Who is he?" her sister asked without preamble. "I don't know what you mean. Sarah, you have checked your phone like 40 times tonight and you have this look on your face. So who is he?" Sarah glanced around to make sure no one else was listening. "I met him by accident. The hotel gave me the wrong key card and I walked into his suite. He let me stay because they were overbooked." Emma's eyes went wide. "You are staying in some random guy's hotel suite. He is not random. And we are not, I mean, nothing has happened. Separate bedrooms." Sarah knew how it sounded. "His name is Xander. He is here for business meetings." "And Emma, I really like him." "How much do you like him?" "Enough that leaving on Monday is going to hurt." Her sister studied her face for a long moment, then pulled her into a hug. "Then do not waste the time you have. Life is too short to play it safe with your heart." Sarah held onto those words as she took an Uber back to the hotel, her stomach fluttering with nervous anticipation. When she opened the suite door, she found Xander on the balcony, his profile silhouetted against the city lights. He turned when he heard her enter, and the expression on his face made her breath catch. "Hi," she said softly, stepping outside to join him. "Hi." He did not touch her, but she could feel the tension between them, everything they had not said building like a storm. "How was the dinner?" "Long. I kept thinking about you. I had 3 meetings this afternoon, and I could not focus on any of them because I was thinking about you." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "Sarah, I do not do this. I do not meet someone and feel like my entire world just shifted on its axis. I do not rearrange my schedule and cancel meetings and lose focus. But with you, I cannot seem to help it." Sarah stepped closer to him, close enough to feel the heat of his body. "What do you want to do about it?" "I want to ask you not to get on that plane Monday. I want to figure out if this thing between us is real or just some kind of perfect storm of timing and circumstance. I want time we do not have." His voice was rough with honesty. "What do you want?" "The same thing." She reached up and cupped his face with her hand, feeling the slight scratch of stubble against her palm. "All of that." Xander closed the remaining distance between them and kissed her, his hands coming up to frame her face with surprising gentleness. The kiss was everything Sarah had been imagining since yesterday, sweet and intense and full of barely restrained want. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "I have wanted to do that since you walked into this suite looking exhausted and lost," Xander murmured against her hair. "I have wanted you to do that since you ordered enough room service for 6 people and sat on the floor to eat with me." He laughed and kissed her again, deeper this time, his arms wrapping around her waist to pull her flush against him. Sarah lost herself in the feeling of being held by him, the solid strength of his body, the way he kissed her like she was precious and essential all at once. They eventually moved inside, reluctantly breaking apart but staying close, her hand in his. Xander pulled her down onto the sofa and she curled against his side, his arm around her shoulders, feeling more content than she could remember being in years. "Tell me about Boston," he said, his fingers tracing absent patterns on her shoulder. "What is your life like there?" Sarah described her small apartment in Brookline, her job at a clinic that specialized in working with children who had speech delays, her weekly dinners with her best friend Rachel, who was a teacher. The rhythm of her days, the satisfaction of her work, the quiet contentment of a life she had built for herself. "It sounds nice," Xander said. "Stable, rooted." "It is. What about Seattle? Do you like it there?" "Honestly, I do not know. I am there so rarely that it never really became home." He was quiet for a moment. I bought this penthouse apartment with these incredible views of Puget Sound, hired a designer to furnish it, and I think I have slept there maybe 20 nights in the 2 years I have owned it. It is more like an expensive storage unit than a home. That sounds lonely. It has been. He tilted her chin up so he could look at her. But I told myself it was the price of building something that mattered. That personal sacrifice was noble or necessary, or whatever justification I needed to avoid dealing with how empty my life had become outside of work. And now I am sitting here with you and wondering what the hell I have been doing for the past 3 years. He kissed her forehead. You make me want different things. They talked for hours, learning each other in the way new lovers do, trading stories and secrets and dreams. Sarah learned that Xander could not stand mushrooms, that he had a younger sister he adored who was a marine biologist studying coral reefs, that he played guitar badly but enthusiastically. Xander learned that Sarah was allergic to strawberries, that she had wanted to be a dancer until a knee injury in high school ended that dream, that she collected vintage teacups from thrift stores. Somewhere around 2 in the morning, Sarah fell asleep with her head on his chest, lulled by the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. Xander carried her to her bedroom and tucked her in, pressing a kiss to her temple before forcing himself to walk away. The next morning was the wedding day. Sarah woke early to her alarm, momentarily disoriented to find herself still fully dressed from the night before. Then she remembered everything and smiled, reaching for her phone to find a text from Xander. Good morning, beautiful. Go be the best bridesmaid. I will see you tonight. The wedding was lovely. Emma looked stunning in her vintage lace dress. Marcus cried when he saw her walking down the aisle, and the ceremony was full of personal touches that made everyone tear up. Sarah stood beside her sister and felt genuine happiness for her, while also feeling the bittersweet awareness of her own situation with Xander. During the reception, while she was taking a break from bridesmaid duties, her phone rang with a number she did not recognize. Sarah Vance. An unfamiliar female voice said when she answered. Yes. This is Jennifer Patterson. I am Xander Novik's executive assistant. He asked me to call you. Sarah's stomach dropped. Is he okay? He is fine, just stuck in a meeting that is running very long. He wanted me to tell you he is sorry and he will get there as soon as he can. Get where? To the wedding. He asked me to find out the location and details. I have a car waiting to drive him there when his meeting ends, which should be within the hour. Sarah felt something warm bloom in her chest. He is coming to my sister's wedding. He was quite insistent. There was a smile in Jennifer's voice. For what it is worth, I have worked for Xander for 8 years, and I have never seen him skip out on a meeting early for personal reasons. You must be pretty special. The meeting must have ended sooner than expected, because 45 minutes later Sarah looked up from talking to Emma's college friends and saw Xander walk into the reception venue. He had changed into a dark suit that fit him perfectly, and he looked slightly rumpled and out of breath like he had been hurrying. Their eyes met across the room and he smiled, and Sarah excused herself to go to him. You came, she said, unable to keep the delight out of her voice. I told you I would see you tonight. I did not specify where. He took her hand and brought it to his lips. You look beautiful. Her bridesmaid dress was a simple blue sheath, nothing fancy, but the way he looked at her made her feel like a princess. Dance with me. They moved onto the dance floor, Xander's hand settling on her waist while hers rested on his shoulder. He was a good dancer, confident and easy to follow, and Sarah let herself relax into his lead. How was the meeting? She asked, frustrating. They want to cut the capacity of the solar farm by 30% to reduce costs, which defeats the entire purpose. He spun her gently. But I do not want to talk about work. Tell me about the ceremony. Did your sister get her happily ever after? She did. It was perfect. Sarah rested her head against his shoulder. Xander, what are we doing? Dancing. You know what I mean. He was quiet for a moment, his hand tightening on her waist. I know we have known each other for less than a week. I know you live in Boston and I live nowhere. I know this is fast and probably crazy. But I have not felt this way about anyone in my entire life. And I think if we walk away from each other on Monday without at least trying to see if this could work, I will regret it for the rest of my life. He pulled back enough to look at her. So I am asking you to try, long distance, for however long it takes to figure out if we can make something real out of this. Sarah's heart was pounding so hard she thought he must be able to feel it. I want that too, but your life, the travel, the demands on your time. I will figure it out. I will make it work. His gray eyes were intense, serious. Say yes, Sarah. Yes. The word came out breathless, full of hope and fear and exhilaration. Yes, let's try. He kissed her right there on the dance floor, in front of her sister's entire wedding reception, and Sarah did not care who saw. When they broke apart, she caught Emma's eye across the room. Her sister was beaming and gave her an enthusiastic thumbs up. They spent the rest of the reception attached at the hip, dancing and talking and stealing kisses. Xander charmed her parents and made Marcus laugh with stories about disastrous business dinners. When the reception wound down, they slipped away together, fingers laced, the future suddenly full of possibility. Back at the hotel suite, they stood on the balcony again, the city quiet in the early morning hours. Tomorrow Sarah would get on a plane and this perfect bubble would pop, but for now they had this moment. I am going to miss you, Xander said, pulling her against his chest. I am going to miss you too. She turned in his arms to face him. But we will make this work. Damn right we will. He kissed her slowly, thoroughly, like he was memorizing the taste of her. Come to Seattle next weekend. Let me show you my absurdly expensive storage unit. We can order too much food and sit on the floor and talk until 3 in the morning. That sounds perfect. Sarah kissed him back, pouring everything she felt into it. Xander. Yeah, I think I am falling in love with you. His smile was brilliant and unguarded. Good, because I am already there. They made love that night with the city lights blazing around them, learning each other's bodies with the same attention they had given to learning each other's stories. Xander was gentle and intense by turns, whispering her name like a prayer, and Sarah felt something in her chest crack open and expand. This was what it was supposed to feel like. This connection, this rightness, this sense of coming home to a person rather than a place. Afterward, they lay tangled together in Xander's bed, neither willing to retreat to separate rooms tonight. Sarah traced the lines of muscle on his chest while he played with her hair, both of them quiet with contentment. I have to be in Germany next week for that meeting, Xander said eventually. But I will be back Friday night. Can you come to Seattle Saturday morning? I will check with work, but I think so. She propped herself up on her elbow to look at him. We should probably talk about logistics, how often we can see each other, how we are going to make this work. We will figure it out as we go. I can fly to Boston some weekends, you can come to Seattle others. I will cut back on the international travel, delegate more. He cupped her face with his hand. I meant what I said, Sarah. I will make this work. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you will tell me if it gets too hard. If the distance is too much or your work needs more of you than you can give while trying to maintain a relationship. I do not want you to sacrifice everything you have built. I promise. But you have to promise me the same thing. If you need more than I can give you, if this arrangement makes you unhappy, you have to tell me. I promise. They sealed it with a kiss, and Sarah sent a silent prayer to whoever was listening that they could beat the odds. Monday morning came too soon. Sarah packed her bag slowly, trying to delay the inevitable, while Xander made work calls and checked his email. When it was finally time to leave for the airport, they stood in the suite entrance, neither wanting to be the first to walk away. 2 weeks, Xander said, pulling her close. 2 weeks and you will be in Seattle, and I will show you my terrible guitar playing. I cannot wait. Sarah kissed him, trying to memorize everything about this moment. Call me when you land in Germany. I will call you from the airport, from the plane, from the hotel. I will probably call you too much. There is no such thing as too much. One more kiss, and then Sarah forced herself to step back. I have to go or I will miss my flight. Go. But he did not release her hand. Sarah, this is not goodbye, this is just see you soon. See you soon, she echoed, and finally let go of his hand. The next 2 weeks were harder than Sarah had anticipated. The time difference between Boston and Germany meant their schedules rarely aligned. They texted constantly and managed a few video calls, but it was not the same as being in the same room. Sarah found herself questioning whether they had been caught up in some kind of vacation romance that would not survive the harsh light of real life. Then Friday night, her phone rang at 11 p.m. with Xander's name on the screen. I am back in Seattle, he said when she answered. And I know it is late, but I just spent 14 hours on a plane thinking about you and I needed to hear your voice. Relief flooded through her. Tell me about Germany. He told her about the wind farm project he had been negotiating, the small town that was both excited and nervous about the change, the local officials who had taken him to a beer garden and gotten him slightly drunk on Pilsner. She told him about her week at work, the 7-year-old patient who had finally mastered the R sound after months of practice, the terrible movie Rachel had dragged her to. They talked for 2 hours, until Sarah was falling asleep mid-sentence, and Xander insisted she go to bed. When she boarded her flight to Seattle the next morning, the nervous anticipation was back full force. Xander met her at baggage claim, and the moment she saw him, all her doubts evaporated. He pulled her into his arms and kissed her like they had been apart for months instead of weeks, and Sarah felt that same sense of rightness she had felt in San Francisco. Hi, she said when they finally broke apart. Hi. He took her bag with one hand and kept hold of her hand with the other. Ready to see my storage unit? His apartment was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Puget Sound, sleek modern furniture filled the open-plan space, and everything was impeccably decorated in shades of gray and white. It was also, Sarah realized within minutes, completely impersonal. There were no photos, no books, no signs that anyone actually lived there. It looked like a hotel suite. See what I mean, Xander said, reading her expression. It is nice, but it is not a home. Sarah walked to the windows and looked out at the view. It could be. It just needs some life in it. What would you suggest? She turned to find him watching her intently. Photos of people you love, books, plants maybe, things that show who you are beyond the work. I do not have photos. I mean, I have them on my phone, but I never print them. Then we will print some. She crossed back to him. Do you have any food in that fancy kitchen? I had my assistant stock it yesterday. I was not sure what you liked, so I told her to get a variety. They made breakfast together, or rather, Xander watched while Sarah cooked eggs and toast, claiming that his cooking skills topped out at ordering takeout. They ate on the balcony despite the chill in the air, and Sarah felt herself starting to relax into this new version of their relationship. What do you want to do today? Xander asked. Can we just stay here? I want to learn how you live when you are not in work mode. So they did. They spent the day in comfortable domesticity, watching movies on his enormous television, cooking lunch together, talking and kissing and learning each other all over again. Xander was different here than he had been in San Francisco, less guarded somehow, like he was letting her see parts of himself he usually kept hidden. In the evening, he pulled out his guitar and played for her, and he really was terrible, but the earnestness of his effort was endearing. Sarah taught him a few simple chords and they sat close together on the couch, her hands guiding his on the frets. "I could get used to this," Xander said softly. "Terrible guitar playing, having you here. Coming home to someone instead of an empty apartment." He set the guitar aside and pulled her into his lap. "I know it is too soon to talk about logistics like that, but Sarah, I want you to know that is where my head is. I am not interested in casual dating. I want this to be real." "It is real for me too." She kissed him slowly. "But we need to be practical. Our lives are in different cities. We both have jobs we love. Long distance is going to be hard. So we will work harder. I am already talking to my executive team about restructuring so I can do more work remotely. I do not need to be on site for every meeting." He ran his hands up and down her back. "And in a few months, if things are still good between us, maybe we talk about one of us relocating or finding a third option that works for both of us." "You would consider relocating, Sarah. I would consider anything if it meant being with you." They spent the night together again, and the next morning Xander took her to his favorite coffee shop, then to the Pike Place Market where they wandered through the crowds and sampled local produce. He introduced her to his sister Lauren over video call, and Lauren immediately demanded to know when she could meet Sarah in person. "She likes you," Xander said after the call ended. "She does not like anyone I have dated before." "You have not dated anyone in 3 years, even before that." She thought they were all too impressed by the money. He pulled Sarah close as they walked along the waterfront. "You are the first person who seems to actually see me." Sunday came too quickly, and Sarah found herself on another plane, this time leaving Xander behind in Seattle. But it felt different this time. They had a plan, a rhythm they were starting to establish. He would come to Boston in 2 weeks. She would come back to Seattle the month after that. They would video call every night, text throughout the day, figure out how to be together even when they were apart. The next 3 months proved both harder and easier than Sarah had expected. The distance was difficult, especially during the weeks when Xander was traveling internationally and their time zones aligned for maybe an hour a day. But the foundation they were building felt solid. Every visit reinforced what they both knew. This was not a passing infatuation. This was real and deep and worth fighting for. In October, Xander surprised her by showing up at her apartment on a Wednesday evening when she thought he was in Norway. "I cut the trip short," he said when she opened the door, looking exhausted and wonderful. "I just really needed to see you." Sarah pulled him inside and into her arms. "I am so glad you are here." He stayed for 4 days, working remotely from her apartment while she was at her clinic, and they fell into an easy domesticity that felt like a glimpse of a possible future. He met Rachel for dinner and charmed her completely. He came to her clinic and watched her work with her patients, and later told her it was one of the most beautiful things he had ever seen, the way she connected with the children and helped them find their voices. "I am in love with you," he said that night as they lay in her bed. "Completely, irrevocably in love with you." "I love you too." Sarah kissed him. "I have for a while now. I was just scared to say it." "Don't be scared, not with me." In November, Sarah flew to Seattle for Thanksgiving and met Xander's family. His parents were warm and welcoming. His sister Lauren was enthusiastic and funny, and they all clearly adored Xander. She watched him with his family and saw a different side of him, more relaxed and playful, the weight of his responsibilities temporarily lifted. "He is different with you," Lauren said when they had a moment alone. "Happier, more present. Thank you for that." "He makes me happy too," Sarah said simply. The week after Thanksgiving, Xander sat her down for a serious conversation. They were in his Seattle apartment, which had slowly started to look more lived in over the past few months, with photos on the walls and books on the shelves and plants on the windowsills. "I have been thinking about the future," he said, taking her hands in his. "About us and how we want to structure our lives. I do not want to pressure you, but I also think we have been dancing around some practical questions for long enough." "Okay." Sarah's heart was beating fast. "I want us to live in the same city. I want to come home to you every night instead of every few weeks, and I know that is a big ask, especially since we have only been together for 6 months. What are you proposing?" "I want you to move to Seattle." He said it quickly, like he was afraid she would stop him. "I know that is a lot. I know you have your job and your life in Boston. But Sarah, I love you. I want to build a life with you, and I am willing to do whatever it takes to make that happen." Sarah took a deep breath. This was what she wanted too, had been wanting for weeks now, but saying it out loud made it real. "What about my job?" "I have been doing research. There are several excellent speech therapy clinics in Seattle that would be lucky to have you. I also know the director of Seattle Children's Hospital, and they are always looking for qualified therapists. I could make an introduction if you wanted." He squeezed her hands. "I am not asking you to give up your career. I am asking you to relocate it, and if you need time to think about it, I understand. This is a big decision." "I do not need time." The words came out clear and certain. "Yes, I will move to Seattle." Xander pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "Really, really. I love you. I want to build a life with you too. Boston is where I have been living, but you are where I want to be." They spent the rest of the night making plans. Sarah would give her clinic notice after the new year. Spend January and February wrapping up with her current patients and training her replacement. She would move to Seattle in March, stay with Xander until she figured out whether she wanted to find her own place or if they were ready to officially live together. In the meantime, Xander would help her research job opportunities and neighborhoods and all the practical details of relocating cross-country. "I cannot believe this is happening," Sarah said later, curled against his side in bed. 6 months ago, I walked into the wrong hotel room, and now I am moving across the country for you. Best wrong turn ever made." He kissed her temple. "I love you, Sarah Vance." "I love you too, Xander Novick." The next 3 months were a whirlwind of planning and logistics. Sarah gave notice at her clinic, where her colleagues threw her a bittersweet goodbye party. She interviewed at 3 different clinics in Seattle and ended up accepting a position at a practice that specialized in pediatric speech therapy, doing essentially the same work she had been doing in Boston, but with better pay and more flexibility. She sold her furniture, packed up her apartment, said tearful goodbyes to Rachel and her parents. Through it all, Xander was her constant. He flew to Boston twice to help her pack. He video called her every night when she was stressed and overwhelmed. He reminded her that she was not losing her old life, but gaining a new one. And when she finally boarded that one-way flight to Seattle in early March, he was there at the airport with flowers and a smile and arms that felt like home. "Welcome to your new life," he said, and Sarah kissed him right there in baggage claim, not caring who saw. Moving in with Xander was easier than Sarah had expected. They had spent enough time together over the past months that they knew each other's rhythms and habits. Xander was neat and organized. Sarah was more relaxed about clutter, and they found a compromise that worked for both of them. They established routines: morning coffee on the balcony, evening walks along the waterfront, lazy Sunday mornings in bed. Sarah started her new job and loved it immediately. Her colleagues were welcoming, her patients were delightful, and she felt challenged and fulfilled in ways she had not expected. Xander restructured his work schedule to be home most nights, delegating more of the international travel to his executive team. They were building a life together, piece by piece, day by day. In June, Xander took her to the San Juan Islands for a long weekend. They stayed in a small cabin overlooking the water, spent their days kayaking and hiking, their evenings cooking dinner together and watching the sunset. On their last night there, Xander led her down to the beach after dinner. "I brought you here for a reason," he said, taking her hands. "This is where I used to come when I needed to think, to remember why I was doing all of this. Building the company, traveling constantly, sacrificing any kind of personal life. I would come here and look at the water and the islands and remind myself that I was trying to protect places like this." "It is beautiful," Sarah said softly. "It is. But Sarah, you are more beautiful. And over the past year, you have become more important to me than any project or deal or business success." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, building a home together, making memories together, protecting beautiful places together. Will you marry me?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears as he opened the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring, simple and elegant. "Yes," she said through her tears. "Yes, of course yes." Xander slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her, and Sarah felt like her heart might burst from happiness. This man, who had let her stay in his hotel suite when she was exhausted and lost, who had rearranged his entire life to build something with her, who loved her with an intensity that still took her breath away. This was her future, and it was more beautiful than anything she could have imagined. They got married in September, a year and a day after they had first met in that hotel suite in San Francisco. It was a small ceremony on the beach in front of Xander's childhood home, with just their immediate families and closest friends. Lauren was Sarah's maid of honor. Emma came from Boston with Marcus and their new baby, and Sarah's parents cried through the entire ceremony. Xander looked devastating in his dark suit, his gray eyes bright with emotion as he watched Sarah walk toward him in a simple white dress. When it was time for vows, he took her hands and spoke from the heart. "Sarah, you walked into my life by accident and changed everything. You saw me when I was invisible to myself. You made me want a life beyond work, a home beyond an apartment, a future full of messy, beautiful, ordinary moments. I promise to love you every day, to come home to you every night I can, to build a life with you that honors both of our dreams. I promise to be your partner in all things, to support you and challenge you and make you laugh even when you want to be serious. I promise to be worthy of the gift you have given me by saying yes." Sarah was crying by the time he finished, and her own vows came out shaky with emotion. "Xander, you gave me a place to stay when I needed it most, and you ended up giving me so much more. A home, a partner, a love that makes me braver and stronger and more myself. I promise to love you through the travel and the long nights and the complicated logistics of building a life together. I promise to remind you to take breaks and eat lunch, and that the work will still be there tomorrow. I promise to be your soft place to land, your biggest champion, your home no matter where in the world we are. I promise to keep walking into your life every single day on purpose this time." When they kissed, their families cheered, and Sarah felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. They honeymooned in Iceland, spending 2 weeks exploring glaciers and hot springs and volcanic landscapes. Xander showed her the geothermal plant he had consulted on years ago, and Sarah loved seeing him in his element, explaining the technology with genuine passion. They hiked under the midnight sun, soaked in natural hot springs, ate fresh fish in tiny villages, and fell asleep each night wrapped around each other, exhausted and happy. "We should come back here someday," Sarah said one evening as they watched the sunset that never quite set. "When we have kids, show them this place." Xander pulled her closer. "You want kids, eventually, do you? I never did before, but with you I want everything." He kissed her temple. "2 or 3 little humans who have your smile and your kindness and hopefully my height, so they do not get stuck in the middle seat on airplanes." Sarah laughed. "That is a very practical reason to pass on your height. I am a practical man." But his eyes were soft, full of dreams they were only starting to voice. Over the next 2 years, their life together deepened and expanded. Sarah became the lead therapist at her clinic, developing new programs and mentoring junior therapists. Xander continued to grow Novik Energy Solutions, but with better balance, making sure he was home for dinner most nights and saving the international travel for truly necessary trips. They bought a house on Bainbridge Island with views of the water and enough land for a garden, and spent weekends making it their own. Lauren got married and asked Sarah to be a bridesmaid, folding her fully into the Novik family. Emma and Marcus had a second baby and came to visit every few months, their kids running wild through Sarah and Xander's house while the adults drank wine and laughed. Rachel moved to Portland for work and was close enough for regular visits. In their 3rd year of marriage, Sarah got pregnant. They had not been actively trying, but they had not been preventing it either, both ready for the next chapter even if it came sooner than expected. Xander was beside himself with joy and terror, reading parenting books obsessively and baby-proofing the house when Sarah was barely showing. "You know the baby will not be mobile for months, right?" she asked, watching him install cabinet locks. "I am being proactive." He moved to the next cabinet. "I want everything to be perfect." "It will be perfect because we will figure it out together," Sarah said, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "Just like we have figured out everything else." Their daughter was born in December, a week before Christmas, with dark hair and gray eyes and a cry that could wake the dead. They named her Alina Rose Novik, and Xander held her with such careful tenderness that Sarah fell in love with him all over again. Being parents was harder than either of them had anticipated. The sleepless nights, the constant worry, the way their relationship had to shift to accommodate this new tiny person who needed them constantly. But they navigated it together, trading off night feedings, supporting each other through the exhaustion, finding moments of joy in every smile and coo and developmental milestone. When Alina was 6 months old, they took her to San Francisco for the first time. They stayed in a different hotel, but they walked past the building where they had met, and Sarah felt a wave of gratitude for that exhausted version of herself who had walked into the wrong hotel room. "Think about where we would be if the front desk had given you the right key," Xander said, echoing her thoughts. Alina was asleep in the carrier against his chest, and he had his free arm around Sarah's waist. "I would have gone to my room, slept alone, gone to the wedding and flown back to Boston. We never would have met. Terrible alternative timeline." He kissed her. "Remind me to send a thank you note to whatever overworked hotel employee made that mistake. Or we could just be grateful for the accident that brought us together. I am grateful every single day." He looked down at their sleeping daughter, then back at Sarah. "For all of it. The wrong key card, the overbooked hotel, every choice and circumstance that led us here." 2 years later, they had a son, James Alexander Novik, who came out screaming and did not stop for 3 months. He had Sarah's smile and Xander's stubborn determination, and he kept them on their toes in ways Alina never had. Their house was chaos and noise and sticky fingerprints on every surface, and Sarah had never been happier. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Xander arranged for his parents to take the kids overnight and took Sarah back to San Francisco. He had booked the same suite where they had met, and when Sarah walked in, she laughed and cried at the same time. "I cannot believe you did this," she said, looking around at the familiar space. The cream leather furniture, the marble fireplace, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. "I wanted to remind you where we started," he pulled her close. "5 years ago you walked through that door and changed my life. Best accident that ever happened to me, to both of us." Sarah kissed him. "I love you. I love the life we have built together. I love our chaos and our kids and our house and everything we have become." "What do you want for the next 5 years?" Xander asked. Sarah thought about it, looking around the suite that held so many memories. "More of the same. Watching our kids grow up, growing old with you, finding new adventures together. Maybe another baby if we are feeling brave. I am always brave with you." He led her to the balcony where they had stood so many times before, the city glittering below them. "Here is to the next 5 years, and the 5 after that, and all the years we get to spend together." They toasted with champagne and watched the sun set over the bay, and Sarah thought about the strange and wonderful path that had brought them here. A wrong key card, a kind stranger, a decision to stay when all logic said she should go. Every small choice had led to this life, this love, this beautiful, complicated, perfect mess of a family. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For letting me stay that night, for seeing me, for loving me." Xander cupped her face in his hands, his gray eyes serious and full of love. "Sarah, letting you stay was the easiest decision I ever made. Loving you is even easier. You are my home, my heart, my everything. Thank you for walking into my life and deciding to stay." They kissed as the last light faded from the sky, the city coming alive with lights around them, and Sarah felt the same sense of rightness she had felt 5 years ago. This was where she belonged. Not in this suite or this city, but with this man, building a life together one day at a time. The future stretched out before them full of possibility. More children to raise, more years to grow together, more memories to make. There would be challenges, certainly. Xander's work would always be demanding. Sarah's career would continue to evolve. Their children would grow up and need them in new ways. But they would face it all together, the way they had faced everything else. That night, lying in bed in the suite where they had first met, Xander held Sarah close and whispered promises against her skin. Promises of forever, of constancy, of love that would weather whatever storms came their way. And Sarah whispered them back, meaning every word. In the morning, they would fly home to their children and their chaos and their beautiful ordinary life. But for now, they had this moment, this space, this anniversary of the accident that had become their greatest blessing. The wrong hotel room key that had led her to the billionaire's suite, and to the man who had not asked her to leave that night, or any night since. It was more than Sarah had ever dreamed of, and exactly what she had needed all along. A home in another person, a love that transformed everything, a partnership built on trust and respect and genuine affection. The kind of love that started with a mistake and became the best decision of her life. And as they drifted off to sleep wrapped around each other, Sarah sent up a silent thank you to the universe for that overworked hotel employee, that wrong key card, that perfect accident that had led her exactly where she needed to be, home.